Hey everyone, this is Nate Lindquist.
Hello, everyone. It's Margaret.
How you doing? Just getting started on our FlipChick Mastery coaching call for the week, and we're excited to have everyone here. As always, we know it's a holiday, so we're going to respect your time, and this will be. We're not going to go as long as we normally do.
We're going to try not to go as long.
We're going to try not to. So we really want to just to make sure that you've got a house under contract and that you're making offers. More than anything, but this is Flip It. You've got a deal. It's all real now. That's what this is about. So we're really going to focus on what that looks like once you have your deal. I want to make sure that everyone can hear us okay. So just go ahead and type in if you can hear us okay, or give us a hello so I can tell that that you're there. And let us know how your Labor Day weekend's going. Are you having a good weekend? Let us know. Are you having a fun, long weekend? We got some shout outs here. How's it going? Hello, hi, good to see you. Anything fun? Any special activities making the holiday awesome?
Anybody sneak out of a party to come do the call, and then you're going to sneak back into the party?
That's awesome. Yard work. All right.
On a flip house?
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, we've had a busy weekend too. So
yes, we have.
All right. Well, it's big no. All right.
Soon,
cool.
Carolyn, soon.
All right, awesome. Well, it's good to have everyone here. Again, we're going to keep the call to down to a dull roar and a little bit shorter than normal. We just want to focus on some of the basics once you have your deal. So let's dive in and let's talk about, once you have a deal and a house is under contract, because as you know, that's the number one goal at this stage in the process to make it real. It's to light a fire under your butt, because once you have that house under contract, it's time to move forward. So
after the house is under contract, I know we've had some conversations in the past about the hesitation to get a house under contract, but really that's the first step. And then you're going to have your inspection period where that really gives you the time to do the due diligence. I know we talked a lot about that. So once you go through that due diligence and you still want the house, then there are some more steps that we're going to talk about today that are going to be the next things that you guys are thinking about. So once again, we know that we've talked about how are you going to get your financing? Do you have your partners lined up? Do you have your money lined up? Do you have your letter of approval, whether you're actually using that lender or not? That's going to help you get the house under contract. Maybe you used a letter from a lender that you don't really intend to use. So the next step is that you actually secure your financing. And I know some of you are going through the process of, hey, I've got a house under contract, or I've got a house that I'm in negotiations with. And before that happens, it's really difficult to find a money partner that is just going to be a money partner. So it's one thing if you have a friend or family member, somebody who's going to give you money, that's great. We wanted to be talking to them from day one. And you may, if you haven't solidified a money partner yet, now that you have the house under contract, it's actually easier to get a money partner. So we didn't want you to not be getting the money partner before that. But right now, if you've got the house under contract, now you can start talking specifics of the deal. So you've gone through the inspection period, you've come up with a budget number, you still think the house is a good deal. And then now you can sit down with some numbers and talk to your potential partners and say, hey, I'll share with you real quick that I had a couple of coaching calls, and there are people that I'm coaching that say, I need to find a deal. I don't want to be the one out there looking for it. I want somebody to come to me with the house under contract because I've got the money. And I shared with them, post on the RIA what you're looking for. And I've also shared with the people who are getting houses under contract, post on the RIA, tell them the numbers, share what you're looking for. There are resources on both sides. So those of you who have the money and are waiting for somebody to bring you the deal, those are in the works. Those of you who have the deal and are looking for somebody to bring you the money, that's just waiting for you. So really getting that contract, that house under contract, doing your due diligence, now it's time to get really serious about finding that money partner.
I can't overstate that enough. It's so important, critical for you to recognize. You don't see who's on this call with you right now. There's some players on this call who have money to invest, who are looking to see who steps up, who shares, what's going on, what progress is being made. I mean, this is the kind of program where people who are looking to be a silent partner and get their money working for them. Maybe they have one or two deals going, but if you've got a profit center and you've got a house under contract, you're now in the game. So, you don't believe it until you believe it, and you're not going to believe it until you experience it. So until you've really done this and taken the step to create your little profit center, you're gonna be on the sidelines, and that's just how it works. All I'm going to say is you don't know who's on this call with you, and you need to. If that doesn't light a fire, I really don't know what will at this point.
And it might be a little scary thinking, well, geez, how do I know? Where's my certainty that I'm going to find the money partner? You don't. That's part of the business, and then you've got the money. Where's my certainty that the person who's finding the deal knows what they're doing? You don't. That's part of the business, but you're going to do your due diligence on both sides. So once you've got the financing partner, well, actually, regardless of whether you have the financing partner or not, you're going to have a closing date scheduled. And then you're going to, again, go through and solidify your budget. Make sure that you've got some really solid numbers, not just the, hey, this seems like what it's going to cost, but that you've got some bids from contractors. And then you're going to go through the process of actually selecting your contractor. So that, some people think, oh, I just want to get the lowest bid. I don't recommend doing that. Make sure that your contractor that you're working with is somebody that you trust, somebody that you have, good feeling about. It's not just about the numbers. You definitely want to look at the numbers really closely and be smart about it. But remember that this is a partner that you're also going to be working with and part of your team.
Generally, I would make a recommendation that you follow 3 major elements when choosing a contractor. In the past, when I've chosen contractors, and Margaret has as well, there's a tendency to say, oh, I want to get the best deal. Well, I'm going to say that that's almost irrelevant. You want to have a reasonable deal. We're looking for reasonableness. But really, the first thing you want to do, you want to gauge how they're communicating. So the first thing is gauge how they're communicating. Flat out, are they communicating in a way where they're dealing with specifics? Because when contractors talk about, oh, I'm not afraid of this job, or they start to say things like, oh yeah, this is no big deal, or this is huge. They're talking in superlatives. They're not talking in specifics. They're generalizing. So if you're looking at the style of communication, it's not specific, then you've got to make a note of that, because if it's not specific now, it's just going to get worse later. The second thing that you want to look for is you want to see if they're communicating in specifics, you want to see, are they writing it down? Is this contractor actually taking the time to put their specifics into writing so you can actually see what they're promising you? Or are they talking in circles? There's a real tendency for contractors to talk a good game and make you hear numbers and hear things that make you feel good that don't necessarily match up with, exactly what you want, and it's easy to sell yourself a contractor. So that's a really important component.
If I can share 2 stories from, we just this past, 2 weeks ago, that we selected contractors for a house that we're rehabbing, and it's a new area. I hadn't flipped a house there before. So, we were in the same position that you guys are in with, hey, if I don't have contractors in my back pocket, how do I select the right contractor? And, there's 2 in particular that I'll share some red flags with you. The one guy came in, and he was talking a big game, and he's like, oh yeah, this is no big deal. This is really nothing. And, he kept saying, what did he keep saying? Nothing about this project scares me. I mean, he must've said it a dozen times as we're walking through the house, which makes me think, okay, the guy's terrified of this project. And then he went on to tell us that he had 15 projects going on at the same time. We said, well, is this going to be a problem with your timeline and getting this done? Oh, no, I work days, nights, weekends. And I said, so do you sub out the work to your other contractors? Who does the electric? Who does the plumbing? Oh, it's me and one other guy.
And he's not always available.
And he's not always available, and I might have to fire him. So, it's kind of the common sense. And, he did talk a good game.
Well, you got to pay attention to inconsistencies in what they're saying. And, I guess what we're suggesting is, and I tend to forget how important this is. So Margaret's helpful in this. Give them a chance to talk themselves into a little circle. They get tangled up with their little stories. And some contractors are real straightforward, and they'll just give you the facts, and then they'll be done. But other ones will just talk and talk and talk and talk to the point where you just hear like the math is not adding up. And it's not just the price. It's, I've got 15 projects. I handle it all myself. I work day and night, and I'm firing this guy. And next thing you know, they're talking about a drama with some relative and some cousin and who doesn't show up on the job because they think they're your buddy. And you're thinking, there's no way this guy's running 15 projects, and there's no way that he could handle even my project, let alone 15.
Yeah, it really, if you ask them questions and let them talk. And a lot of times, even though I've got a really solid plan in my head on what I want to do, I'll say, well, what do you think's the best thing to do with this, this situation with this radiator? And, should we switch it to HVAC? And, let them give their input, partially because if they are really professional, they know what they're doing, you might get some new ideas from them. And partially you're going to see, just how much they're talking out of how many sides of their body.
Well, what happens is if you have a contractor that doesn't want to deal with the plumbing issue, they'll tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't move the plumbing. They'll tell you why what you want to do in your project isn't a good idea. And you can hear them selling you on doing what they want to do.
What's easiest for them
to do, or maybe within their capabilities.
Right.
The third element I want to share with you is, the step that you want to take is give the candidate an opportunity to make a promise and keep a promise at least twice. So when you're talking about, how do they communicate? Are they talking in specifics? Are they willing to write it down? That's the second one. And then the third is give them a chance to make a promise and keep it at least twice. Because if they can't keep a promise before you're working with them, how are they going to do it once they are?
Yeah. And that communication, that starts from the first time you reach out to them on Angie's List. How quickly did they respond to you, or however you're finding your contractor. I was really tight for time. I had a lot of other things going on. So I just went out to Angie's List and I sent for each of the contractors that I needed. I knew I needed an electrician. I knew I needed a plumber. I knew I needed a general contractor. And I just sent out between 10 and 15 same message to them that just said, hi, I have a project in this city and I'm looking for somebody to do this. This is the general scope of work. I'd love to meet with you in person, have you come look at the project, see if it's something that you've got time for, something that you're interested in, something that is within your capabilities. And it was really interesting. Some people within 10 minutes I would get a message or a phone call or a text message or an email back. Some people called me a week and a half later after the project had already started. So it was really interesting to see that their communication back to me really helped me to decide whether it was going to work, that I was going to be doing work with them. I had one guy, actually it was the other guy who's a crazy story. He's like, could you just text me 30 minutes before our call or our meeting time to remind me? No, I can't do that. I'm not your secretary. If you can't figure out your schedule just to come to bid a job, then you're probably not going to be the guy that I'm going to hire. So again, just as excited as we can get sometimes to have found the contractor, be really aware of the red flags that, they're letting us know whether they're the right person by all these different modes of communication, what they're saying, what they're not saying.
Also pay attention to hey, let me create conflict and drama. If someone is giving you stories about families, stories about conflicts, someone they had to fire and why it was their fault, and they're justifying that, or even better, they come back after they've talked to you, tell you all the reasons you're doing the project all wrong, just run.
Yeah.
Just get away from that. There's no need for that.
So you want to really put the renovation plans, once you do hire the contractors, put the plans into a timeline. It's really easy for time in a project to get away from you. And I'll share, again, we're in the middle of one right now. We had hired a designer because this is a pretty extensive rehab where we're moving the kitchen from one side of the house to the other and adding a bedroom. And we'd had actually a designer come in who was supposed to give us floor plans. So you can go to Home Depot sometimes and get them to come out, at least for things like the kitchen, and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing, and get a rough idea, or even come out and give you measurements on the flooring. So that can give you, it's a cheap way to get a starting place, and then it is easy to use them. It's easy to go and actually follow through with using them, but at least you get a starting place. But this time we decided we were going to use a designer. And when we talked to him, it's now been 3 weeks. It was a Tuesday, and he was going to have the whole thing back to us by the following Tuesday. We got a message from him finally last Friday. Well, guess what? By this time, I've already got my little chicken scratching notes of where things are going to go. And, he lost out on the work. I didn't go hire another designer because, frankly, we can do the work without it. It was just a nice thing because it's out of state for us, and we wanted to make sure that we could really explain to the electrician and the plumber exactly what we wanted done where. So it's nice when you have the drawings. It's not the end of the world if you don't have it. I mean, frankly, what I did is when I was back at the house, I took some kids' chalk and I drew on the walls exactly where I wanted what, so that nobody was going to be confused. And it was for their purposes, it was just as good as having the designer. But again, he talked a great game. He came in and it was actually quite helpful because he gave us the name of the plumber and an electrician that we are using. So I have to give him some props for that. But again, when
Just not
somebody
a check.
just not a check, but when somebody they're over promising and under delivering, then they're just not right for the team. They're not somebody that you're going to hire again. And it's legitimate. Some people have stuff come up in their life, but that is going to affect your timeline. So make sure that, again, when you're, if let's say, for example, we had said, oh, we don't have the designs yet, we have to wait till the designs are done. Well, no, we went and we hired the general contractor, we did the demo, we did the rough carpentry, and now we're at the place where we're doing the rough electric and the rough plumbing. We had to keep the project going, even though I'll call it a little snag, because we knew the timeline that we had in the project and we were going to stick to it.
All right, so now we move to the next step, which is 3 days before closing. And there's a lot to think about, but here's some of the top of mind things that you want to have available. And this is when your money should be in the account, obviously, to transfer. I mean, you're getting ready to close on a property. So once you've secured the financing, you need to have it, and you also want to make sure you have your wire instructions received and establish what the final amount is that you need to bring to the closing. That's very important to have prepared. Obviously, that's how you make your deal.
So it used to be the case that you could get the HUD. It's the closing statement that's going to give you all of the numbers. It used to be that you could get that the night before. Now you need that done 3 days before, which in some ways it's good because you have a little bit better planning. In some ways it gives you a little bit less time to do the planning. So once they pull the final numbers, then the deal is going to be going through. Then when we say wire instructions, so the money will actually get wired to the title company. So whether it's from your lending partner, whether it's from a hard money person, the money will get wired, and that's how the closing happens. Is all the money happens through the title company. You want to make sure that don't worry about doing all of this stuff too early before this. I say 3 days before closing because it's scheduled, it's going through, you've got the final numbers. I've unfortunately more times than I care to think about had a closing not go through, and I've got the utilities transferred, I've got a dumpster delivered, and the closing doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen for a week. So I have to call back and make sure that I don't pay for the utilities before I actually own the house. I've got to just shuffle my schedule with the demo team and everybody. So we want to have demo teams is a good example. You want to have somebody who understands that there's urgency to it, and they also have to have a little bit of flexibility. So that may be something that it's one of the things that for me, I haven't always had the best demo team because I've taken the guys who were available so that I could get the project done and keep on the timeline. So I'll go through the list here. Secure the insurance. Make sure you have the property under insurance. It's only happened once that I've needed to file a claim on the insurance, and it would have been devastating if I hadn't had the right insurance. So make sure that you just start with your regular insurance company and find out what the options. Again, the key to really being smart in this business is ask more questions than acting like you know what you're doing. So when you call them, say, yeah, I've got a house, I'm fixing it up. And, just find out what questions they ask. There's different types of insurance, whether it's replacement value or if, it's a set dollar amount that it's insured at. So I had a particular house that the renovation was about 3/4 of the way done, and we ended up having a squatter in the house. And this was, it was actually before I really understood whether I had the right insurance or not. So you could get replacement value that they look at and they say, hey, this is what it would cost to rebuild this house on this property. And they take away the price of the actual land because you'll have that even if the house burns down. Or they can give you a set dollar amount. So they say, hey, if this house burns down, you get $50,000 or $100,000. So a lot of times it makes sense to do replacement value. Again, I hope nobody has to actually follow through with filing a claim. But the day before Christmas Eve, I had a house burned down, and that's how I found out that I had selected the right one, which was replacement value. And I ended up on a house that I bought for, I think it was $25,000 or $30,000, had put about the same into it, and walked away from the insurance company with a check for $152,000, because that was actually, it was a little bit more than that they said was replacement value, but I had to actually rebuild it. But they started by giving me a check for $152,000. And if I had rebuilt the house, which I didn't, because it didn't make any sense in this neighborhood to do that, then I would have gotten another $50,000. So, again, we don't, this is when we talk about planning for a rainy day. That was a very rainy day. It was a very cold and snowy and freezing day. And, thank goodness that I'd had the right insurance set up. And then again, transferring the utilities. Again, I share with you the mistakes I've made primarily because I don't want you guys to make them. I've had it where I have not, I've transferred the utilities on the purchase. I've had it where I haven't transferred it when I sold the property, and I ended up paying for somebody else's utilities way longer than I was owning the house. So again, these are just checklist things that you want to make sure that you don't get stuck, even if it's only a couple $100. A couple $100 is a couple $100. And then dumpster, again, make sure that you've got, a lot of times it's really difficult to work on a job site if you're not set up properly. Maybe you need to get even a porta potty. So I used to never get a porta potty. I was like, no, they can go to the gas station. But guess what? That's time off of my project. And you think when they go to the gas station, they're not getting a soda and having a cigarette break. So, depending on the extensive, nature of the actual demo and before there's another toilet working, you want to get a dumpster, you might want to get a porta potty, make sure that the guys are able to work and really be working. And then, when we get past that initial demo, one of the first things you want to do somewhere in the house, make sure there's a single working toilet so that the guys don't end up leaving the job site. Getting the locks changed, I always do that right away. And it's a pretty simple thing to do. And then a lockbox, you don't want to necessarily give your lockbox code to everybody, but you want to have key people so you don't have to meet them down there. You want to make sure that you really understand. And Nate's really good about, hey, here's our operating procedures. I'm a little bit more loosey-goosey with it, but who is opening? What is the opening procedure? Who's closing? Who's the closing procedure? We won't go into that today. But that is something we will soon. Yeah. We will soon.
Because we know you're going to hit number one goal, which is get a house under contract.
Yes. Okay. So a little more detail about the demolition. So the first part of demo, a lot of times when you buy houses, there's still going to be stuff in it. So you're going to get everybody's junk out of it. I used to spend a bit more time like, oh, is this worth something? Get it out, because your business is flipping houses, not selling things on Craigslist. So get everything out of the house. Make sure that we didn't mention it, but there also may be permits that you need to pull. We've gotten stuck with doing demo a little bit too quickly and finding out that we needed to pull some permits and they've shut a job down. Like you might need to get a demolition permit. So just find out in your city or your county what the requirements are for that if you're going to pull permits.
Also, let you know, it's important to remember if you're getting a home equity line of credit and you're actually intending to live in part of the place that you're renovating, you need to find out if they're doing an internal appraisal for your home equity line of credit, because if they found out that you've done any demolition, you won't get it. They won't appraise a house where there's been demo. So just keep that in mind as well. Just a little nifty little tip. These days, a lot of home equity lines, if it's on a property you're living in, they want to see the inside and see the condition.
So rough mechanicals, when we say rough mechanicals, that's the stuff that's behind the walls. So your electric, your plumbing, you want to make sure if you're moving electrical fixtures or plugs or switches, that they open up the walls so that the electrician can be able to work where he's going to be working. The plumbing, same thing. Make sure you get the water turned on so that you can. I think back to some of my situations. I had the water turned on one time. I didn't have the plumber there, and all of a sudden water started pouring out everywhere. So thank goodness I knew how to turn off the main, but it could have been a big mess if we hadn't done that. So now I always have the plumber on hand when they turn on the water. And then, sometimes with these foreclosed houses, the houses may have sat through a winter. And when they sit through a winter, sometimes the pipes burst. And that can be a very expensive thing if you don't catch it. It's not a big deal. Pipes burst, you open up the walls, you replace the pipes. It may happen in a half a dozen or a dozen places throughout the house, which seems overwhelming, but it's really, the overwhelming part is if you don't find out where the leaks are and isolate them and open up the walls, and it slowly leaks, and you come in the next day and the whole house is flooded. That's the real danger of having a house that sat through the winter. So again, those are rough mechanicals. If you need to put a new HVAC system in, so get your trades in. We just, this house that we're doing now, it had radiators, and we needed to pull all of the radiators out because we were knocking down walls. And so that meant we had to have the plumber come in and close off the pipes going in there. So those are what we call the rough mechanicals. So that happens, and then the carpenter will come in and do the rough carpentry, which means basically everything that is not to the point of covering it with drywall. So the walls will still be open. The electrician can come in and do his thing. The plumber can come in and do his thing, and then you'll go through and do your permits, your inspections, and then they close up the walls. So right now it's planning out in the first few days, how are my rough mechanicals going to be scheduled into the timeline. And there's times, and it's interesting, if you're really, really on top of the contractors, have good communication with them, find people that are wonderful to work with, like we've been fortunate to be able to find. We've found some that are really not wonderful to work with and haven't worked with them very long. But if you let them know that this is an investment, I want to get in and I want to get out as quickly as possible. So when somebody's doing some of the demo, talk to the plumber, the electrician, say, hey, could you work in the in this condition? What are you expecting to have done when you come in on day one? If you think about what each of their jobs are, they kind of live in their own little bubble. So the electrician wants to know that he can turn off all the electric for the house when he's doing his thing. Well, the plumber might need something plugged in, but he wants to turn all the water off. So just really understanding each of the different contractors' perspective and asking them how well they can work while there's other trades in the house working. Some of them will say, no big deal. Some of them will say, I will only work. I have an electrician who I've worked with. I will only work and be the only person in the house. You need all of the other trades to go, which he's a great electrician. He's a great price, but sometimes it's not feasible. Or I'll tell him, that's fine, but you have to come after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or you have to work on the weekends if you want that to be the case. Because I can't stop a project because you're being a bit of a prima donna about having your own space and not wanting to trip over the carpenter stuff.
This can sound really complicated, so there's a tendency to talk about it and to think about it and to really sort of mind mash it. It's really simple. Get a calendar, have good communication, make sure that these are contractors that are willing in the trades to work with each other and to work with you, and just write it in on the calendar and hold them to it.
And I put together a timeline to share with you guys, so yeah, I'm probably making it sound more complicated because I've done it a million times.
It's a lot easier when you see, you just get a pen out and you write it down, or pencil, I should say, because don't do it in pen. All right.
Yeah, the timeline is really pretty straightforward, and it's based on about 6 weeks. And you show it to each of your trades. Say, here's what we're working off of. How can we make this happen?
Yep, absolutely.
So again, if you got an inspection during your inspection period, like an actual formal inspection, which in the beginning I highly recommend, it is going to be your best guide for just at a high level coming up with the scope of work, which, at this point you've already gotten a bid. So, gotten a bid or turned it into a bid, and have that be what they're working off of. This is going to really help you to see, do I need a electrician? Do I need a plumber? Do I need a this, that, and the other thing? And there may be some other random trades, that you're going to need to hire, like a brick worker for the fireplace, or, if there's
we call them
water softener
masons.
Or mason, a brick guy. No, he's
a brick guy.
You look in my phone, it says
brick guy.
It says brick guy.
Yeah. And they do things like tuck pointing. They do chimney work. They'll do repairs. They'll do new mantles and fireplaces, and you name it.
And a lot of times, if you talk to them on the side, they also do things like lay patios, and it's interesting. And I'm going to make this point now. When you're talking to a trade, especially when you find a trade that you really feel good about working with, then ask them who they know. If you find a good electrician, ask him what good plumber he knows. That's another thing that's going to make your job go really smooth, is when everybody plays nice together in the sandbox. And I've had it happen where people don't play nice together in the sandbox, and it just makes the project drag out. It makes it unpleasant sometimes when you go there. So once you hire your first contractor or somebody who you really feel good about, then try to hire other guys through them. Try to find who their team is, who they like working with, because that's going to, again, you're sort of going to create the benefit of having a general contractor, even if you're not having a general contractor, because you've got a bunch of guys that are working together. So some of these are just little secrets that I've learned over time, not creating my own crew from scratch, but creating it from who's friends with who. So, again, the inspection report's going to turn into the bid. It's going to turn into the actual project. It gets put into the timeline. You're going to use that for the estimates. You're going to make sure that you agree upon something, use a contract. Again, Nate's much better than me. I tend to do handshake deals, and it's come back to bite me many more times than I'd like to admit.
Yeah, when someone says the contract's going to end up in a drawer and no one ever pulls those out, that's great. Let's do one to put in the drawer. It's good to fall back on. It's good to get specific. Listen, this call is about, there's steps that you can take. They've already been mapped out. We've already been down these roads before. Margaret's done it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. It's not a complicated process once you have it in front of you. And frankly, once you've been through it once or twice, you're gonna understand the nuances, and you're gonna be able to play the game really well. So this is to give you some anticipation about what's coming. Once you get a house under contract, we have a plan for you, so you don't need to be afraid about what happens next.
And all of these details we will cover again, and especially cover when we're doing our coaching calls. So it's going to be really specific, but we wanted to give you a sense of, hey, this is what's coming up next. So once you guys have the closing scheduled, again, if you don't have a contract, or you don't have a house under contract yet, Craig's going to send out an email. I want everybody to get on a coaching call so we can get you to that place, whether you're on the money side of it and you want to find a partner, or whether you're on the, hey, I want to go find a house, and part of my process is finding that money partner. Make sure that we have the coaching so that we can either, come up with a plan to help pair you up with somebody, or, find that person that's going to be your counterpart if you're not doing it alone.
Yep. And for these coaching calls, we're going to give you the option to schedule the call with Margaret or to schedule the call with me. And let me tell you why we're doing that this way. One of my specialties, in addition to obviously understanding and having flipped homes, I draw a lot of the best information out of Margaret so she can bring you just her amazing experiences with flipping and with investing and going through this process. My specialty is excuse removal. And I know that sounds like somewhat of a docile, innocuous concept of removing excuses. But if you don't have a house under contract now, my question for you would be, why not? We've told you where you can get the money. We've shown you step by step exactly how to look at your market and how to find where it is to make your deal.
Or to go to another market.
Or to go to another market. There's always markets near enough. There's always opportunities near enough. There's always different ways to make deals. And there's a very specific process, a 7-step process that I've been coaching now called the Excuse Removal Blueprint. And it's a very powerful process to take you from, hey, I want to be a real estate investor, but I just can't because of X, to, oh my gosh, this very reason I thought I couldn't move forward is the reason that I'm successful at it right now. And if that's where you're feeling stuck, if you really do have all these reasons and you think they're significant enough to keep you from moving forward, I assure you it's not a shortage of strategy at this point, because we've given you everything you could possibly need to know to take that next step. It's a matter of an excuse. And I don't mind saying it like that, because I know what it feels like to be sitting where you're sitting. I know what it feels like when you have something up against you saying, hey, I really need the money. I really need to make a deal. I really need to take this next step. I don't have enough experience. I'm not sure what to do next. I just don't have the confidence, or, my market's not cooperating with me. In essence, once you recognize that those obstacles are excuses, your very biggest obstacle will become your greatest success. So I'll show you how to go through it. I'll take you through that 7-step process. I'm also going to remind you that your mindset is critical right now. And, I spent a lot of time, and Margaret and I spent a lot of time preparing for your Power Week at the beginning of this training. And it's really easy to forget how much substance there was in that part of the training. So if you go back to that and get your mindset reset, get yourself clear about the process that you're going through and why you're doing this at all, make sure your reasons are big enough. And then as we wrap this up today, make sure you know when the email comes out from Craig to get scheduled with a coaching call. And we'll give you the opportunity as well. If you'd like to have that coaching call with me, We can make sure if you have strategic questions, I can answer those as well. Whatever question I can't answer, we will make sure that we do answer. Yep. There's some certain nuances or areas where if I don't have the answer, I make sure I can get it. Sometimes Margaret won't have the answer, and she knows where to get it. But when push comes to shove, it's either an excuse or something strategic missing. 99% of the time at this phase in the training, it's an excuse. So let us know on that. Is there anything else you want to add, Margaret?
No, I think really the most important thing right now is having that house under contract. So schedule the coaching call. That's really your only homework for this week, is to keep working on getting the house under contract if you haven't already, and schedule the coaching so that, again, if, like Nate said, if there's anything holding you back at this point besides what you've already shared and we're working through, because I know there's a few of you that we're just, we're really just working through, okay, we're going to get the deal. It's just a matter of making more offers. Mm-hmm. But if there's some of you out there that haven't even made an offer yet, then make sure that you get on a coaching call. That's the homework for this week.
So if you think that there's a possibility, I want you to have an open mind here, because we're looking for people who are really playing the game. If you're hearing me right now and you think it's possible that your reasons might just be an excuse right now, maybe a little bit, raise your hand. I'm not going to call you out. I'm not going to say your name. I just want to know if you think it's possible. Okay, that's good. I'm proud of you for raising your hands. Excellent. Excellent. So let's make a point that we have that call, because you're far bigger and far more capable at taking this next step than you're giving yourself credit for. And after we have our call, you'll understand that. So I'm excited for that. And this has been a good call.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for
we kept it brief too. Look at that.
Yeah, thanks for showing up on a holiday too. Not only is it a Monday, but it's a Monday of a holiday where you tuned in and you turned it up, and now you're going to take action. You got to have transformational willingness if you want to take this next step. If you're a caterpillar who's I want to be a real estate investor, and the real estate investor version is actually the butterfly, you're not going to go do it as a caterpillar. You're going to become a butterfly. That's, however cliche that might sound, the truth is, and I just actually watched a really great video on this the other day, the butterfly nest of a caterpillar actually kills everything that was a caterpillar. I mean, the head falls off. It dissolves everything that was a caterpillar and literally becomes the butterfly. And when you go into investing, you want to become the butterfly.
You want your head to fall off?
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting there as an investor feeling as though you're the pre-investor version of yourself. How many of you would like to be the butterfly? Raise your hands. How many of you would like to be the butterfly? If you're paying attention.
Wonderful.
Looks like all of you.
Oh, my beautiful butterflies.
There it is. All right. Well, we love you guys. Happy holiday. And Labor Day, it means we're supposed to work, and we're working it. So, all right. Have a great night. Thanks again for a great call. We'll talk to you guys
on coaching or also on next Monday's call.
All right. We'll talk to you real soon.
Have a great night.
Bye.